So guys, it was a hot summer's day. I'm telling you, it was disgustingly hot. I don't know if you've had one of these days where you breathe the air and it feels like your insides are getting microwaved. Do you know this? Like it turns your lungs into two little hot pockets. Or casse souffle if you're Dutch. It was one of those days. Now I had come home from university to visit my family, but on that day, I knew I had to get out. I had to go out. So I called up my friends and I invited them to that place where we usually go out when I'm in my hometown, which is to say, and it's a common theme tonight, we went to the pub. But I'm from a small town. I'm from a small town in Ontario, Canada. Anybody Ontario, Canada? Woohoo! We got a couple. The rule of Canada is there's always a couple of us in the room. You just never know who. You sound American. So, in my hometown, and if you're from a small town as well, I think a couple of you are from Ireland, so you might recognize this. When you're from a small town, there's not a lot of pubs to choose from, right? So you got like the one pub with the good decorations, the one that plays live music. That's the good pub, but also the pricey pub. And then there's the other pub, the pub with the broken windows, the pub that has the customers kind of lacking in some teeth. They play country music on the jukebox all the time. That's the pub you don't want to go to, except for the fact that it has cheap beer. Luckily in my hometown, there's the third option. That's the pub where my friend worked at. So given these three options, I decided I'll go to the one where I know I can at least get a few pints if I'm lucky. Now joining me are two of my friends rather. One, we call him Handsome Ben. He's this tall guy. I don't know, in North America we have this mythological figure. He's called Paul Bunyan. This tall lumberjack, you see him on paper towels. So that's Handsome Ben. Now, though he may look like he's built half bear, I assure you he has the heart of a Labrador Retriever. He's absolutely adorable. Next to Handsome Ben, there's Nolan. Now, Nolan is the aforementioned bartender, one of my oldest friends, and one of the most instantly likable guys I know. I'm not afraid to say it. I love Nolan. I love Nolan as a dependable friend. I love Nolan as a caring father to his kids. And I even love Nolan when he's telling embarrassing stories to the guys that I'm trying to date. I love Nolan. So the three of us, we get in the pub, and we see that it's incredibly busy. It is a hot summer's night, and this pub is busy. And we're giving Nolan a hard time because he said, no problem, I'll reserve you a table, but all he can reserve for us is this corner booth. Now, I don't know if you've ever had the experience of being in a corner booth on a hot summer's day, but I found myself sandwiched between two large, hairy men, shoulder to shoulder like a can of sardines. And once the heat started to kick in, it was about as oily as well. Seriously, guys, nothing could save me. No amount of cold beer could save me from the summer swelter and man musk that began wafting around our table. That's when Nolan got an idea. Why don't we go swimming? Why don't we go swimming? Never mind that it's 2 a.m. Never mind that the three of us had drank enough beer as to drown a horse. Why don't we just go swimming? If the beer couldn't do the trick, maybe the ice-cold St. Lawrence River could. So the three of us, we left the pub, we had our arms wrapped around each other, and we made our way down to the harbor. Now, my hometown, sometimes it likes to save on electricity, so that night, there was only one streetlight lighting the entire harbor area, and it was dim, and it was flickering, like in a horror movie. But never mind, guys, never mind, because we're veteran pros, we know what we're doing, we've done this before, so we start taking off our clothes. We start stripping. We start stripping all the way until we're au naturel and there's no secrets between us, just a bunch of guys. If you need to take a moment to visualize this for yourself. You get a good image? Are we all there? So once we're naked, right, we just start being like schoolboys again. We're pushing around, we're teasing each other, we're wrestling, and next thing I know, I'm being grappled by Handsome Ben and Nolan. Nolan has me by the wrists, Handsome Ben has me by the ankles, and they're doing this game, you know? And I'm screaming, and I'm trying to break free, and eventually they let me go, but of course, only when I'm at the top, so I go directly into the river. Meanwhile, beside this harbor, there's this old, tall tower. It's not old, it's actually new. It was built built recently so that these wealthier people from cities like Toronto could retire along the riverfront. So you can imagine in this tall tower with its cement walls and iron gates, an elderly person woke up to the sound of a disturbance. And what did this elderly person see as they peered behind the curtain? But two dimly lit men swinging a third body into the river. A little bit suspicious. So us three guys, we had jumped into the river and we were swimming around when all of a sudden we were disturbed by this beam of headlights breaking up from the harbor. Handsome Ben turns to me and he goes, "Shh, shh, don't make a sound, don't move. They won't be able to see us. It'll be just like in Jurassic Park." And as I'm trying to figure out what exactly Handsome Ben is talking about, that thought is disturbed by another light. Two lights, in fact. Red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. Oh shit, it's the OPP, the police. All right, boys, time to get out of there. We follow order. First, Handsome Ben gets out of the water. Now, Handsome Ben has a strategy. He's going to play it cool. So Handsome Ben walks right up to the officer, puts his hand on his hip, everything's swinging openly to see, and says, "What seems to be the problem, officer?" Me? I'm not so calm. I rush right to the clothes and I try to get changed as quickly as I can, but of course I'm wet. I've been drinking all night. The siren lights are in my eyes. I try to put my foot into my underwear. I slip. I fall face first into the mud, my ass up in the sky, full moon, everyone to see. And I can only watch in horror as Handsome Ben continues to power pose against the face of the law as this young officer begins to deliver the charges. First one, indecent exposure. That's a matter of opinion. Second one, public intoxication. That's a little bit more true. Third one, disturbing the peace. I'm looking at the situation, I think this is it. I'm screwed. I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to be thrown into this cop car. I'm going to be driven to the drunk tank for the first time in my life. Even worse, I'm going to have to call my parents to come pick me up. That's when I hear a voice coming from behind me. "Oh, hey, Jim, how's it going?" There's a moment of silence. A moment of realization as the officer peers through the dark and says out loud, "Nolan, is that you?" Nolan responds, "Lovely night for a swim, isn't it?" Now, I don't know really what happened at this stage. There was some conversation. We were given a warning. I was allowed to put my clothes back on. I got in a cab, and I went home. The next morning, I'm having breakfast, and I have to tell my parents this story. I tell them about the drinking, I tell them about the night swimming, and I even tell them about the police. And as I'm telling this story, I notice that my dad, he's got this familiar glint in his eye. He was a bartender as well. And so he says to me, he says, "Doesn't matter if you're the mayor. Never mind if you're the chief of police. True power belongs to those who serve the most beer." So as I stand on this stage tonight, on the theme of friendship, I want to thank my friend Nolan, not for just being a dependable friend, not just for being a loving father, but also for being a damn good bartender.